following announcement has been paid for by the new Howell order.
Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the bluest of blues, we'll cover it all here on Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, yesterday was just crazy. It was a whirlwind. I expected one. We didn't expect both. And just everything that happened just happened so quickly. It was Tez, and then like 35, 40 minutes later, it was Chase. And it just turned into this crazy media firestorm. And usually anytime Washington is at the center of any media firestorm, it's never good. I think a lot of people praised us for kind of hitting, not necessarily the reset button, but kind of putting ourselves in a better position, no matter what the situation is, you know, assuming that there's going to be a change in, you know, general manager and head coach and all of that good jazz. That's the assumption that anybody that's logical in the conclusion that they've probably come to at this point. And knowing that, you want to give the next guy as much ammunition as humanly possible. And you want to make this job attractive. And how do you do that? You load up the draft with picks, specifically in the first 2 days, which we've done. You hope to establish a quarterback, so that's not something that you have to spend capital on or use your draft picks to bundle together to try to go up and get. And now you can just build around a young quarterback on a rookie contract. And so there's a lot of enticing aspects to what Washington has done. But I spent most of today scouring over social media. I'm a lurker at heart. You guys know this. I've told you this many times. That's why I can always identify with someone who's like, I've been watching you for a long time. This is my first super chat. They've been watching me for 4 or 5 years, right? Because I'm that guy. So I can identify with the long-time viewer, first-time super chatter. So I was in my lurking bag today, just all over socials. You know, every post that I found interesting, I'm in the comments, reading the comments. And I just wanted to get a sense for what Washington fans were saying and how they felt. And I told you today was going to be really interesting because we were going to hear from Ron, and we're going to hear from the players. And I wanted to check the temperature. Just wanted to see where everybody's head was at, what Ron was saying, and what Ronald had to say about yesterday. And I believe some of it. I don't believe all of it. And we'll get to that. And I got a lot. I took notes. Okay. I took notes on Ronald's press conference. I never take notes. I took notes. So I'll go through my notes when we get to in other news. However, here's the thing that I've found the most interesting amongst the fan base. So I think a vast majority of us liked the moves. You know, I told you guys yesterday, and I stick by this. It's the way I feel. It's the way I felt initially when it happened. I knew it was coming, so I kind of braced myself for impact, but I didn't expect both of them to be traded. But I told you on Sunday after the game, I wouldn't mind if both of them were traded. But ultimately, I don't love the move, right? I don't like it. I don't necessarily love it, but it's the smart move. It's the right move. And I was never interested in paying either one of these guys what it was going to take to get them under contract long term. And I expect this from people outside of the fan base who haven't watched Chase Young and or Montez Sweat for the duration of their careers like we have. We know what these players are, or at least some of us do. Not everybody does, clearly. And I'm going to get to that here in a second. But we know what these guys are. We've seen them. Tez for 5 years now, 4.5. And Chase for probably a shade over 2 seasons now, 2 full seasons, I'd say. I don't even know if we've gotten to 2 full seasons. He played in 7 games this year for us. And he played in, that's 2 full seasons because he played in played in all, I think he played in all but 2 games his rookie season, 1 or 2 games. He had the little groin or whatever. And he missed a week or 2 in his rookie season. Let's just call it 14 in his rookie season. Might have been 15. Let's just call it 14. Then the next year, we were through 8 games when he got hurt against Tampa. We were 2-6. He got hurt against Tampa. So that's 8 games. So that's 22 games. And he played in 7. That's 20. Let's call it 29 games. 29 career games. So just a shade under 2 seasons for Chase Young. Right? We can pretty much figure out what he is at this point. Now, we know what he's not. What he is a little murky. We know what he's not. We know he's not TJ Watt. We know he's not Myles Garrett. We know he's not, one of these difference makers. He's not Nick Bosa. Even though Nick's having a down year this season, he's not Nick Bosa, right? We know what he isn't. What he is he Jadeveon Clowney? I think so. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But the national narrative is, oh my God, they gave Chase Young away for a song. A compensatory 3rd-round pick. How could they? What a win for the 49ers. Okay. If you say so. Okay. With our fan base, I think the vast majority of them know we did the best we could with the situation, what it was. They didn't have to trade Chase, obviously. They could have held on to him. But are you going to get a deal done with him? If you don't, you're not guaranteed to get a compensatory pick. A lot of people say, well, you could have got that same compensatory pick had you just held on to him and let him go after the season. If you couldn't, get a deal done with him, you shouldn't have traded him for just a 3rd-round pick. He's the former number 2 overall pick. And this is where I stop right there. I stopped the argument right there. And now I got to start preaching. And I hate preaching, okay? Because that shit falls on deaf ears. And if you preach too much, people start tuning you out. That's a lesson for y'all with your kids, too. You got to pick your spots. Because if they always feel like you're preaching to them all the damn time, they start to tune you out, right? But I got to stop you right there. The camp that goes, you can't get a 3rd-round pick for the former number 2 overall selection in the 2020 draft. This is where I stop you, okay? Because you got to understand that at some point you have to cut your losses. Some people don't understand that concept of admitting when you made a mistake, right? Some people aren't willing to admit that Chase Young will never be what we drafted him to be. You're never getting that guy. He's not the Predator. He'll never be the Predator. He might end up being a damn good end, like Jadeveon Clowney, which is what I think he is. And I didn't want to admit that, but watching him this season, he looks like Jadeveon Clowney. Tall, rangy, physical at the point of attack, a menace in the run game, but he's not beating elite tackles. He'll beat up on the bums. Oh, yeah, he'll beat up on Justin Pugh. Wipe the floor with him, But he's not going to beat the good tackles in this league. When he sees guys that have some kind of skill in front of him, that have some athleticism, a little bit of length, he has no moves. He doesn't set tackles up. I've long said this. Athleticism in the grand scheme of things for an edge rusher is really low down on the totem pole of qualities and traits you need to have to be dynamic. You don't have to be the best athlete. I've seen guys that weren't great athletes at all that found ways to get to the quarterback, but it's because they're savvy. They understand leverage. They understand the hand usage aspect of being a pass rusher. And most importantly, the mental side of things. You got to be able to set guys up. And in order to set somebody up, you got to have more than one move. All right. And all Chase really has is 2 moves. And the speed rush isn't great enough to where you're scaring somebody to where they're opening up so quick that now the crossover, which I think is his best move, but coincidentally enough, is his most destructive move to the defense that he's playing on, because if he gets washed inside, now there's no outside contain, and the quarterback can either go outside and post up and look for somebody down the field, or you can just take off and run. How many times have we seen that happen with Chase Young rushing? He goes inside, he gets washed inside, and now there's nobody outside. How many times have we seen that? But that's probably his best move, is that crossover. Hard outside, back inside. Too many people are hung up on you can't trade the former number 2 overall pick for a 3rd round compensatory pick. Yes, you can. And yes, you should. What did you think you were going to get for him? He's 24. Yep, he's got that going for him. He's in the midst of a career year, 5.5 sacks. He's got that going for him. We watched the sacks. You watched all 5 of them. You know what they look like. You know how he got them. Don't play yourself. Don't let the PFF statistics tell you that he's one of the best in the league. He's getting single coverage. He's being blocked by one guy more often than not. He's not Nick Bosa, who's being blocked damn near 40% of the time by 2 defenders, or 2 offensive linemen, rather. That's not what's happening to Chase Young. If Chase Young's on the field for 50 snaps, 32 of them, he's getting one-on-one coverage. That's a lot of opportunities one-on-one with an offensive lineman, and he's not winning. So the injury, the lack of production, and, he's a household name. And for those who haven't watched, who just know Chase Young's name and think we did something stupid and, oh my God, the 49ers got over, that's cool. I'm not going to argue with them because clearly they don't know. They haven't watched. But for those of you who have watched and you still think Chase Young is worth more than a 3rd round pick just because we spent the 2nd overall pick on him, that don't mean shit. You think the rest of the league cares that we spent the number 2 overall pick on Chase Young? Oh, man, we can't get him for just a 3rd round compensatory pick. They spent the number 2 overall pick on him in the 2020 draft. He's 24 years old. We got to give him more. That ain't how this works. We look at your body of work. We look at your injury history, your durability. We look at what we think you're going to project to be. And then we determine what your value is. And the league spoke. The 49ers weren't the only team to call. We heard several other teams interested, i.e. the New England Patriots. But you know what the 49ers did offer? More than anybody else did. So that tells you what the value around the league was on Chase Young. If you want to go after the season's over and you want to spend $20 million on Chase Young, knock yourself out. $20 million per year on Chase Young, $22, $23, $24 million, whatever it's going to take to sign him to a long-term deal, knock yourself out. I wasn't interested in doing that. Not for a guy that I think is solid, but he's not a game wrecker. That's game wrecker money. Nor him or Tez were game wreckers. They were good players. And I'd much rather have a good player on my team than none at all. But I'm not trying to pay you game wrecker money to be a good player. We've done that for too long here in Washington. And this is where I expand the conversation, because too many people are caught up in big picture versus and when you think big picture, you're taking into account moving into the future what all of this means. And some people can't get past the fact that we just traded 2 defensive ends and they're not a part of our future. They can't fathom how this team is going to move forward as if these guys were dominant and we had a choice to make. And instead of keeping one, we got rid of both. They did the right thing. And big picture, if you're on board, if you like what transpired yesterday, You're loving all of this compensation that Washington has amassed. You're loving what they've presented to the rest of the league. If they're looking for a new GM, if they're looking for a new head coach, this is enticing. You're loving that big picture. But most of the people that are looking big picture have quit on this season. We've thrown in the towel this year. We suck. There's no way you're going to win without Chase Young and Montez Sweat. Really? That's the conclusion you came to after trading two guys away? I had somebody in the comment section of the video yesterday say, we're going to be the worst team in football. We're going to suck ass, and you need to keep that same energy when we suck ass. And my response was, first of all, I feel really good about what they did, and I will keep that same energy. I said we will not. We won't suck. Okay, not like you think. And I am. That's all I left. And then I said, you really think those two guys make that big of a difference? I struggle with that. Like, if you're a rational fan, you really think Montez Sweat and Chase Young make that much of a difference on this defense that was giving up 30-plus points almost every week? You do? Why? And again, my mind is open. I'm listening. I just want to know why you feel that way. For the big picture people who can see the future and see them going out and finding a new GM, finding a new coach, all these draft picks and hoping that they get this shit right. Because again, half the battle is acquiring the picks. What you do with them is ultimately what's going to determine whether all the shit that we just did was worth it or not. Montez Sweat goes on to have 2 double-digit sack seasons for the Bears in the next 4 years, and we take that second-round pick and we draft another garbage second-round player, which is what we've done customarily here in Washington, then we screwed the pooch. But if we get a stud in the second round and Tez plays well for them, everybody wins. Everybody wins. But for the big picture people, this season isn't over. I just want you to know that. I know you've given up on Ron, and you should. You should have given up on Ron. I know you've given up and don't trust Jack, and you should. You should have given up on Jack. You shouldn't trust him. I know some of you, I'm included, and I've already started to kind of moonwalk a bit. I'm gonna ease up. I'm gonna ease up. On EB. Some of you have already, he's not the guy. Doesn't run the football enough. Situationally, he's not as aware as I thought. I've seen good in EB this year. I've seen bad in EB, but the good has outweighed the bad. It's just I was expecting more. I set the bar very high for EB, and he hasn't met my expectations, but my expectations might have been unrealistic to begin with, and I'm willing to admit that. That said, for all that I just said, for those of you who think those two players make that much of a difference that this season, and maybe you thought the season was over when those guys were here and nothing has really changed other than two of your better defenders defensively are no longer here, and so it can't make us better, right? The season's not over. I still don't think we're going to make the playoffs. Let me just say that. But I think we're going to be in the mix. I do think there's still a patented Ron Rivera November run in, the works for this team. I think it starts Sunday on the road at Foxborough against the Patriots. I do. I think that we have no business going to Seattle next week and winning. They're better than us. They just are. And defensively, we shouldn't be able to stop them because they have a lot of talent and we don't have enough in our secondary to stop them if we can't get to Geno Smith. And I don't think we're going to get to Geno Smith. Somehow we're going to find a way to win that game. Don't ask me how. I don't know how, but I think we can, and I think we will. I think the run is coming. We're going to fall short because that's what Ron Rivera does. And we're not going to get it done when it's all said and done. And we'll probably end up, my guess right now, if you wanted me to put a number on the season, it's 7-10 or 8-9. I don't see us being any better than that. 7-10, 8-9. A lot of you that can't see that happening. I say, why not? I've seen Casey Tuhill and Jaden Smith-Williams start before. I'm not moved by it. I'm unfazed. Give me a double salmon with cheese. I know they're not Chase. I know they're not Montez. You want me to tell you where I think we're going to be hurt the most without those two is in the run game. Coincidentally enough, those guys are really good against the run. I don't think they get the credit that they deserve as run defenders. Give me Montez Sweat over any defensive end in the run game in the league. Love Montez Sweat in the run game. I don't think we're going to miss them all that much from a pass rushing standpoint. I'm just being honest with you. Hell, we might even be better because the guys that they're bringing in, they're not going to try to do too much. They're going to be disciplined. If it calls for them to keep outside contained, Casey Tuhill and Jaden Smith-Williams are going to do exactly that. They're not going to dip inside and try to make something happen and have the quarterback run for 7 yards on 3rd and 5. So, if anything, we might be more disciplined up front. And that might help Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen instead of having a guy next to you that might freelance a bit. Big picture, we're set up to build this thing the right way with a foundation that could change the game and have us be competitive as soon as and as early as next year, if done correctly. But don't lose focus of the current picture, the current situation. This shit ain't over. I know some of y'all don't believe, and I don't blame you, and I'm not telling you that you should believe. I'm just telling you this shit is not over. And for those of you who think the season's going to hell in a handbasket because they traded 2 defensive ends, miss me with that. You're going to have to prove that to me. Until it happens, until this team falls apart at the seams because Chase Young and Montez Sweat are no longer here, I'm not buying it. If it does happen, okay, I'll come back and I'll offer up a 0-0. But I just don't see that happening. I don't see that happening. A lot of fans can't get past the fact that we got a 3rd-round compensatory pick for Chase Young. Get over it. That was the best you were going to get. I don't know what you think this is. I don't know what kind of value you think him being the former number 2 overall pick holds. Like that's supposed to enhance trade value somehow. Because I tell you, he's the former number 2 overall pick. You know who else was the former number 2 overall pick? I think he might have been 3. What's the kid from Stanford, the defensive lineman from Stanford that the 49ers drafted that's now with the Jets? I can't even remember his name. What does that matter that he was the number 2 or number 3 overall pick? You're not good. You're not good. And Chase isn't trash. But at the end of the day, I'm going to tell it to you like this. They got the most out of those 2 edge rushers from a value standpoint as they could. And we didn't get the most out of them on the field. That's the sad part about all of this, is there was more to tap into with both of those players. But we didn't have the staff to do it. Let's be honest with ourselves. So you got the most that you were going to get out of them with the staff that we had, because this is the thing, and I'm going to leave you with this thought. Elite players aren't scheme dependent. Let me say that one more time for those of you who need a little time for that to kind of resonate in your brain, and let that marinate a bit. Just sit with that for a little bit. Let me say it one more time. I'm going to say it a little bit slower for some of you who need to hear this. Elite defenders are not scheme dependent. How often have I talked about Jack needing to scheme up ways to put them in positions to succeed? That helps. It helps that TJ Watt may line up on either side or line up over your center. That helps. That Myles Garrett can go and stand over your center and be doing crossovers and going behind the back, and when he snaps the ball, go right past him to your quarterback. That helps. But you know what else Myles Garrett can do? He can line up over your guard and whoop his ass. He can line up over your tackle, kick his ass. He can run through a double team and get to the quarterback. He can go through a triple team. You don't need a scheme for that. I've seen TJ Watt work through a triple team and get a sack. You don't need a scheme for that. You give TJ Watt one-on-one with the game on the line, you're going to regret it. Ain't no scheme for that. Our guys need a scheme. If we keep talking about they didn't use them right, well, that means you need a scheme. Elite players don't need a scheme. Give me a one-on-one and watch me work. Just all I need you to do is scheme it up so I get one-on-one. Jack didn't even have to do that. Teams were disrespectful every week, and they said Chase can't win one-on-one. I ain't worried about him. I'll chip him every now and again just to keep him off balance. Maybe give him something to think about when he see that tight end or that running back going out for a pass. He's looking over his shoulder to see if he's getting chipped. Just to give him something to think about. Maybe slow him down a bit. But most times they were comfortable on 3rd and 7. Him and Montez, hey, we good. They ain't getting to the quarterback. Solomon Thomas. Thank you, guys. Solomon Thomas. He was the 2nd or 3rd overall pick by the 49ers. Does that enhance his value somehow? You tell me. Anyway, I digress. Let's move on to in other news. So the season's not over. I just let me finish that by saying the season's not over. So we got a lot to get to here. We heard from Ronald today, and that was 14 minutes of compelling theater for me. I can't speak for you. You might be at the point with Ronald where it's in one ear, out the other. And I was at that point, but I knew today the antennas were up today. I was all in. You know, I was playing shit back and going back, and like I told you, I took notes. Okay. So my kids were over here making too much damn noise. I couldn't hear it. Shh. I had to put it, push it back 34 seconds so I could hear the question again, then the answer. I was locked in. Heard from some of the players, and it's the guys we always hear from, Charles Leno. I was surprised we didn't hear from Terry or Logan Thomas, but Charles Leno. We heard from Antonio Gibson. We heard from, obviously, Sam Howell had a press conference. Who else was part of the locker room scrum? And I'm pretty sure they had more guys that they might have loaded up to the site that I haven't seen yet. I know Casey Toohill was getting a ton. And to be fair to Casey, they've been talking to Casey every week. It just hasn't looked like this. Casey had about 10 times the amount of media members that are normally over at his locker talking to him. But they talk to the guys that we hear from on most weeks that are, deemed leaders of this team. Kendall Fuller, we heard from him as well. So, but before we get to any of that, let's go ahead and first take our very first look at the injury report for both teams heading into the Week 9 contest. There is a football game, just in case you forgot. With all this shit going on and all the talk of next year and the offseason and new GM this and Bill Belichick that, and we'll talk about all that shit tonight. Because I know you heard the rumor too, and I think it's bullshit. And I'll tell you right now, I want no parts of Bill Belichick coming here. But we'll come back to that. Put a pin in that. We'll come back to that later. Let's take a look at this injury report for week number 9. So we start with the good guys. And Jonathan Allen and Kendall Fuller both are perfectly fine, non-injury related. Both were getting rest today, so they didn't practice. Curtis Samuel and Ricky Stromberg are a different story. Samuel left the game with a toe injury. That's not good. Sounds like turf toe. I'm not sure. I don't want to make any speculations or assumptions. My guess is he's not going to play in this game, which sucks. But Crowder played well last week, but I still would prefer Curtis Samuel be out there. Ricky Stromberg, knee. I knew this was going to happen because of all of the conversation around the trade and how players are responding in the locker room and this, that, and the third. And they weren't going to ask about Ricky Stromberg's injury and the extent of it. So we didn't hear anything on Ricky today. We just know he didn't practice. So I'd like to know if Ricky's got a significant injury or not. Don't know, but he didn't practice. So that's not good. Percy Butler, calf limited. Logan Thomas, heel limited. We'll see what that means moving out. Thursday is the big day for me. That's when I expect, if you're going to make a push to play, Thursday is the day that you got to hit the field in some shape, form, or capacity. So we'll see what happens then for a number of these players. You go to the Patriots side of things, and generally, like I said, when you're playing bad teams, it's usually a laundry list of injuries, and this is no different. And you got Calvin Anderson, illness, Pharaoh Brown, tight end, back, Trent Brown, tackle, ankle and knee, and Devontae Parker, wide receiver, with a concussion. All of those guys did not practice. Now, of that group, the two that stick out like a sore thumb for me are Trent Brown and Devontae Parker. Devontae Parker in particular is interesting because if he can't go, and I don't think he's going to play because he sustained this concussion. This isn't a concussion that he sustained last week, and he may be able to come back. He sustained a concussion against the Dolphins last week, or this past week, rather. So it's rare, and this is not his first concussion. So he's going to miss this game. Why that's important is because their best receiver, all right, Kendrick Bourne, tore his ACL in the fourth quarter of the game against the Dolphins a few days ago. So you're without your top two wide receivers. You already didn't have a ton of talent to begin with. Like, literally, all they really have is the rookie DeMario, what is his name? Oh, shit. And DeMario Douglas, and he's not bad. But if that's what they're coming into the game with, and like 15 tight ends, and one of them in Pharaoh Brown is banged up, if we can't kick their ass, Mac Jones, force him to turn it over 2 or 3 times, if we can't, I'm going to be pissed off. I'm just going to be honest. But it's Jack. I can't get any more pissed off than I am with him already and disappointed. But this is a game I think we should be able to go in there. We got to stop the run first. They're going to run the screen game. We got to shut all that shit down. They're going to throw it to Ezekiel Elliott. They're going to hand it to Ezekiel Elliott. They're going to throw it to Ramondre Stevenson. They're going to run it with Ramondre Stevenson. If we can't shut those two down in a passing capacity, tight ends as well, and stop the run, it's going to be a long day. But if we can do that, Gesicki and all that shit, we just got to find a way to slow the tight ends down. We should be fine. They don't have any receivers. Christian Barmore, who's actually really good, has a knee limited. Jawan Bentley, hamstring limited. Miles Bryant, cornerback, chest limited. Jonathan Jones, cornerback, knee limited. Vidarian Lowe, ankle limited. Josh Uche, my favorite name in the NFL. Linebacker, ankle and toe limited. And Dietrich Wise Jr., shoulder limited. The limiteds don't really concern me all that much. Barmore is interesting, but I think he's going to play. I think he's going to be fine. So anyway, I digress. So let's get back to in other news, and let's talk about the main event of the evening, which was Ronald's press conference. So I took the liberty to take notes, as I mentioned, and I'm going to talk about all of the points of this presser that was 14 minutes and some change long that I deemed pertinent. Okay. And I will elaborate on each of these points. So the first point that he made in his presser today was that, so this one wasn't something he said, but I told you I'm a psychology guy. So body language and speech, the words you say and how you say them and how you deliver them are all important. And I know Ron by now. And it doesn't take me long to figure somebody out. I've had 4 years of Ron now, so I know Ron pretty well. He didn't want to trade Montez Sweat. I don't think I'm telling you anything that you didn't already know. That was the guy. And I said it before the season started. If they had to choose one, Tez is their guy. Jack spoke glowingly of him. Ron spoke glowingly of him. Montez was a hard hat and lunch pail guy. He came to work every day. They knew they could rely on him. He played well. He wasn't elite. But in this league, you're not going to always have elite players. But the good ones that you can count on, you much rather have one of those guys than a guy with a ton of talent that you can't rely on. That's not always healthy. That's not always in the like that. I told you the episode with Chase pissed them off to no end last season. Okay. They were fans of Montez Sweat, not so much Chase Young, right? Like he starts off the presser by talking about Montez Sweat and how he liked the young man and how he hopes he, does good things in Chicago, all the things you're supposed to say. And he comes up with a cockamamie excuse on why he can't do the same for Chase. Now, it's a valid one. Like it's almost like when a detective doesn't want to answer questions about a case, all he's got to say is, I can't answer any questions. It's an ongoing investigation. That shuts the whole shit down. After he says that, you can't ask him no more questions, right? Because that's his out. And you can't question that. So all Ronald had to say was, well, because the 49ers are on a bye week, that process is moving a little slow. It's still pending, so I can't. Yes, you can. If you want to, you can speak about Chase. You could have said the same thing you said about Montez, but you don't have those same warm and fuzzies for Chase that you do Montez. You didn't want to trade Montez. They made you, okay? And just by listening to him talk about how that went down, he didn't want to do that. They made him do that. He was fine with trading Chase. But the guy that was going to fetch them the most value was Montez, so he didn't have a choice. And I will even go as far as to say Ron didn't want to answer this, but it's true. We know it. We all know it. I said it last week. One of the titles of the video last week is this Eagles game. This could be the beginning of the end. This Eagles game with Tez on the block. That was one of the names of the CNN last week. And somebody asked him point blank, did the outcome of the Eagles game change the way you guys went about the trade deadline? And Ron's like, hey, I'm going to talk about where we at now. Translation, yes, it did. You win that game, you go to 4-4, you're feeling totally different about the season. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. Now, Eagles fans that are out there that want the satisfaction say, oh, man, we ended the Commanders. No, what you did is you started the clock on your own demise is what you did. You started the clock earlier. You might have been better off letting us get the dub and not letting us acquire draft picks. You might have effed up is what you probably just did. Now, we still got to get the right GM, right coach. We got to make good selections to make these picks mean something. But the ammunition is there. You effed up is what you did. We were already threatening your ass with poor coaching and guys that, frankly, didn't give us a chance to win on a consistent basis because of malpractice being committed by our coordinators, specifically Jack and our head coach, Ronald. And we was pushing you to the brink, push them to the limit with that shit going on. Imagine if we get competent guys in here and we fortify some of these positions with these early draft picks. You might have effed up. Anyway, he didn't want to trade Tez. That's the first takeaway from this thing. He starts out with a soliloquy and an ode to Tez and talks about the young man. You know, Ron calls everybody the young man and how he did some good things here. And we enjoyed him in his time here and we wish him nothing but the best. All the things you're supposed to say. But you could tell he wanted no parts of trading him. The next thing that I took down in my notes is Ron believes in Sam wholeheartedly. And I'll extend this out to, it's not just Ron. Josh Harris and that ownership group believes in Sam as well. And here's why I say that. I'm going to take that bullet point there and I'm going to combine it with the next bullet point, which is Ron said in his presser today that they're thinking about the long term of spreading money around, right? So for so long, they've invested first round draft capital, early round draft capital on the defensive side of football. They've spent dollars, more of them on the defensive side. Terry's gotten the extension, but really, when you think about all the money that they spent, real money, like tangible money, Kendall Fuller, right, was the only deal that they really gave out of substantial money when they first got here in 2020, right? That's a defensive player, right? William Jackson III was the highest free agent they signed, after Kendall Fuller. Now they signed Curtis Samuel, but William Jackson III's deal was of more value than that of Curtis Samuel, right? So more dollars being spent on the defensive side of football. And then we know about all the draft capital. You've gone, 6 or 7 straight years with a first-round defensive player. You got to go all the way back to Jonathan Allen in 17, Duran in 18, Chase, or you had Dwayne Haskins, but you also had Montez Sweat in 19, right? 20 was Chase, 21 was Jamin Davis, 22, that's where it stopped, right? That was Jahan Dotson, right? And then 23, you go back to the defensive side, and Emmanuel Forbes Jr. So a lot of resources have been spent on the defensive side, not enough on the offensive, but they believe in Sam wholeheartedly. I'm going to combine that about thinking about the long-term contracts of other players and spreading that money around, but I think they're thinking about the long-term contract of Sam Howell. I think that Ron and company got together with their brain trust, and if he described it that way and it happened that way, and I'm not sure if it really happened that way. I'm questioning whether it happened that way, but we'll get to that. I think they're thinking about, they being Josh Harris and Eugene Chin and all of those guys, I think they're thinking about, hey, Sam isn't a first-round pick. This is year 2 of Sam. If we think Sam is that guy, we can't spend money on these defensive ends. We already got money tied up on that defensive line with the 2 defensive tackles. If we're going to pay Cam Curl and you're going to pay, Curtis Samuel or whoever, those deals are going to be modest. They're not going to break the bank. But we can't spend the kind of money it's going to take to keep either one of these defensive ends and pay Sam Howell and feel like we're in a good spot financially. That's just not smart business. Because keep in mind, if Sam is legit after next year, you got to pay him. He's going into the final year of his contract. You got to pay him then. And if you were to extend Montez or Chase, that's when the real money for them kicks in. Is right when you got to go pay Sam. So you got to be cognizant of that. And I think, and how many times did Ron say, hey, we got our quarterback. We think we got our quarterback in this press conference. They believe in Sam, as they should. And I know somebody earlier I was talking to on my podcast, I thought they misconstrued what Ron was saying, because Ron talked about the inconsistency of the quarterback position as to why they didn't work out. The 2 edge rushers didn't work out in Washington, and they didn't get the most out of them, which I think is total bullshit. He couldn't bring himself to say we failed them. They're talented. We could have gotten more out of them, but we didn't. But that, because they don't see it that way. I can't ask them to admit something that they don't even see. Like Jack and Ron don't see anything wrong with how they call defense. I do. Because it's bland and it's unimaginative. It doesn't force a offensive line to have to figure shit out. It's basic. Even the blitzes are basic. So they never, ever put those guys in a position to win, like scheme it up for them to win. They just asked, because they're first round picks, you expect them to win, and they didn't. And Ron even mentioned that, like, think JP Finley said, do you think you got, they lived up to, what you thought they would be? And he said, no, they had their moments, but no, we thought there was more there. And for whatever reason, we didn't get it. But they love Sam. I'm feeling more and more confident. I still need Sam to finish this season off strong. Not strong. But just leave no doubt is all I'm asking. Leave no doubt. But I think they already know. Like, it's hard to play quarterback in this league, and this young man is showing us he can do it at a high level. Next thing, I told y'all yesterday, I'm not with that smear campaign shit. I hate when a player leaves and you take it upon yourself to try to make sure that everybody knows, hey, we weren't at fault here. That's the oldest Washington organization trick in the book. That shit goes all the way back to the Bruce Allen days. When they would, how you trying to negotiate with somebody and, start a smear campaign on that player at the same time, which is what they did with Kirk Cousins. Like, shit doesn't make any sense. They did the same thing to Scott McCloughan when they tried to get rid of him. They did the same thing to Trent Williams when they were looking to get their money back. Like, this is what this organization has shown a track record of doing. Now that those guys are no longer here and real adults are in the building, I expect better. But Ron did the same thing when the exact same blueprint, the exact same thing. He did the same shit to Dwayne Haskins when they moved on from Haskins. Leaked it out that, he was never the first guy in the building, he last to leave. He was not the guy that was studying film, and, he just wasn't the kind of, leader that you needed. What do you need to do that for? You want to make yourself look better? Why? Move on. Let the shit go. And immediately after trading Chase Young, and people start saying, oh, Washington's stupid for trading him. And they don't know what Chase is out here doing. Let the national media do the national media thing. Because the national media don't never know shit about what's going on locally. Let them do that shit. We know better. You don't need to put up a front for nobody, and you don't need to tell business that's in-house. Y'all might know, and he's probably not wrong about Chase in terms of freelancing and doing what he want to do. People used to get upset about Chase not being there as a leader, not being at the OTAs, and Chase was always marching to the beat of his own drum. Always, from day one. And if you're going to do that, I'm fine with that as long as you produce it. And he produced in his rookie season, so I didn't give a shit. It wasn't until thereafter when he wasn't like, hey, wait a minute now. 1.5 sacks through 8 games, bro. That you can't be doing Family Feud and during OTAs with 1.5 sacks, bro. You can't do that Chipotle commercial during OTAs. You can do it after. I'm not telling you not to get your bread, but you can't tell me I got shit to do when it's OTA time and you got 1.5 sacks. Not that makes a difference, but it's bad optics, right? I don't like that shit. And I was hoping it wasn't true, but here's what I took away. Ron didn't refute the Chase Young criticism that Adam Silver or Michael Silver had. And we know he got the shit from Ron. That's Ron's right-hand man. He used to work for Washington as a contributor. Michael Silver, when Ron signed here with us, went to his house, sat down and ate dinner with him and his wife, and did a whole piece on Ron Rivera. That's his boy. So if it's coming from Michael Silver, I know where he got this shit from. And you know what Ron said? I don't know how it got out. Ron didn't say, I didn't say that shit. Nobody in his building said that shit. And I don't know. Ron said, I'm upset that it got out and people won't put their name to it. He just wants somebody to be able to point at it and say, hey, why you do that shit? But he didn't refute it. And that tells me that you said the shit and you didn't mind it getting out. And that's bullshit. That's garbage. That shit pissed me off. take the high road. Be better than that. He wasn't. It was the same thing with Dwayne. He wasn't mad that the shit was out there. He wasn't mad that people was like, bro, you said that shit for real? Why y'all do that? He was mad that the shit got out. It's like, to me, it's the equivalent of, I ain't mad that I stole. I'm mad I got caught, right? Like, I don't feel bad about that. I feel bad that I got caught. When you're in a relationship and the person cheats on you and they talking all kinds of shit, they're not mad. They're not remorseful because they cheated on you and they feel bad and they see they hurt you. They upset that they got caught. That's kind of how I felt about Ron. Like, bro, that's some bullshit, man. Next point. Josh Harris was a huge part of this trade process. And Ron made that abundantly clear. Like, I wasn't talking to nobody else. Mitchell Rails, Magic Johnson, none of their asses a part of this, which they shouldn't be. This is Josh Harris's team. Let's make that abundantly clear. You know, those are partners, but they're minority partners. He's the majority shareholder. He's the owner, right? So he's like, I was just talking to Mr. Harris, right? You know, that's Ron. He's that military background. Mr. Harris. I like that Josh was a part of this because of this situation. For future references, though, moving forward, when you get the guy that you want to delegate to as a GM, look, when you pay $6 billion for an organization, at a bare minimum, just fill me in on what's going on. I'm not going to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. Just let me know. You know, I just don't want to be in the dark. I'm pretty sure that's how most NFL, organizations work. I ain't going to tell you how to do your job. That's why I hired you, so that you could do your job. I just need you to keep me in the loop. He needed to be involved in this because Ron and company aren't going to be here. So you can't let them make decisions unilaterally because they're going to make decisions that are in their best interest, not the interest of the organization. Ron tried to make it seem during this press conference like he sat down with Martin Mayhew, Marty Herney, and the Brain Trust, and they came up with these picks. They went out, they went fishing, they figured out what the value was, and they went to Josh Harris and Eugene Shin, and they said, yeah, that's some good shit right there. Y'all go ahead and do that. Nah, I don't think that's what happened at all. I think you was dragging your feet like, yo, I'll trade Tez. I'll trade Chase Young. And that bait ain't, those fish ain't biting right now though. Like, we put the Chase Young bait out there. There ain't nobody biting on that shit. Now, the Tez bait, that's attracting a lot of fish around here. But I don't really want to trade him. And it was like, Eugene Shin was like, but that's the guy that's going to get you the best value, though. And working the phones, they quickly figured that out. He's going to get you the most value, most bang for your buck. And so my last point was Eugene Shin helped with the value. Remember last night, somebody, I think it was Red Wings 01, said that that John Kahn said that Eugene Shin was a part of this process. And I was like, how? How does analytics work here? And I got my answer. He helped with the value. Like, is a 2 for Montez Sweat good value? What do the numbers say? Is like, if we play the law of averages, if we start punching in numbers, what's the likelihood that you're going to be able to get something of that or greater value in the offseason? Sign and trade, XYZ, et cetera, et cetera. What's the likelihood? Is this the best value you're going to get at this time? If we don't move on this, are we going to regret it? That's where he came into play, Eugene Shin. All right. Chase Young, look, man, that compensatory pick, and I know conventional wisdom says, hey, just let him walk in the offseason and you'll get that same compensatory pick the 49ers are offering. Now, if you want it for this year's draft, you're not going to get it for this year's draft. You'll get it in 2025, but it'll still be available to you. Eugene Shin might have been like, hey, ain't no guarantees. We got a lot of cap space. Don't know what anybody else out there is going to be willing to pay. Chase Young could hit the market and figure out that this market ain't what I thought it was, and he might take a 1-year prove-it deal first with somebody, and now you asked out, and that third-round compensatory pick you thought you was going to get ain't coming. And Eugene Shin might have been like, hey, you might want to just go ahead and take this thing that the 49ers are offering right now, because it ain't no guarantee that Chase is going to get that deal. Like, what if Chase gets hurt? Like, this is when you start playing with the numbers game. You know, what if Chase gets hurt in week 11? His value is in the toilet, and now he's got to sign a 1-year prove-it deal with somebody, and that compensatory pick that you knew was coming ain't coming. You better take this compensatory pick right now and stop bullshitting. And I think Josh Harris was also involved in that process and saying, hey, I'm trying to load this shit up for the next guy, right? And I love how Ron kept talking like, hey, I'm like, he's a part of the movement. Like, we really feel good about Sam. I'm glad you feel good about Sam, but you ain't going to be here to see the fruits of that labor. You know, we did what we thought was best for the organization because, you know, yeah, you did. But again, I don't think you're going to be here to kind of see this thing through, though. Sorry, not sorry. So those were my takeaways from the presser. It was a good one. I enjoyed it. And I thought Ron was pretty genuine. Even with the Chase stuff, he didn't deny it. He just was mad that he got caught, essentially, that somebody outed him. Only thing that I thought he was a bit disingenuous, and I can't prove this. I can't confirm nor deny this. But the only thing I thought he was a bit disingenuous with was the involvement of him and the current front office. Like, they took the initiative to go out and field calls and make calls about Chase and Montez, independent of Josh Harris and Eugene Shin. And then after they got all of this information, they took it to Josh Harris, and he just said, huh, interesting. Yeah, I think we should do that. And he co-signed it. I don't think that's how it went. I think Ron's plan was, hey, we should move one of these dudes. I think it should be Chase Young. Montez Sweat has a future here in Washington. And I think Josh Harris consulted with Eugene Shin, and they was like, which one of these boys will get us the highest pick? And Ron reluctantly was like, Montez Sweat right now to get us a 2. They was like, yeah, go ahead and do that. And it was like, you sure you want to do that? I mean, if you move both of these dudes, you won't have either. Yeah, go ahead and move both of them. Yeah, we're not looking to pay Montez Sweat what Montez Sweat and his agency are going to be looking for after the season. Because what they're not going to look at the fact that he's never had double-digit sacks. And he may get that this year. He's trending in that direction. He's on pace for 12.5 sacks this year. So 13 sacks, rather, on the season. So he's trending in that direction. But if he gets to 13, he's going to want big boy money, right? And we've seen the sacks, and we continue to see his sacks and what they look like. They're not like dominant, immediate win sacks a lot of times. It's second, third effort sacks. Somebody gets in first. Tez continues to hustle, cleans it up like he did on Sunday against the Eagles. Duran gets immediate pressure. Hurts eludes him, but Tez comes and cleans it up. That's out of his 6.5 sacks. I guarantee you go back and watch all 6.5 of them. 4.5 of them are probably that right there. So I think he had one in the Bears game that was him winning, and he had one in the Cardinals game that was him winning. All the other sacks, I would question as to whether they were immediate winners. So they did what they had to do, and I respect that. You heard from Sam. Sam jumped up at the podium, and he talked about the Patriots defense. First of all, he talked about, a couple of the guys in the locker room that are no longer there. You know how that goes. And he's like, yeah, those are brothers, and you hate to see it happen, but it's a business. And I told you, Sam and Jahan and those guys aren't going to be affected. They weren't with Chase and Montez for 3-4 years like the rest of the guys in the locker room were. They just got there, and I'm pretty sure, those two in particular had an impact on those guys, and they were the loudest guys out on the practice field and things of that nature. And so they're gonna miss that. But you know, them young boys still trying to establish themselves in the league. They ain't worried about somebody else not being here. So you know, Sam talked more about the Patriots game and his growth and development. He talked about getting the ball out against the Eagles. He credited the offensive line. And, you know, he said this game against the Patriots is going to be a challenge, which we all know it's going to be because we're going up against Belichick. And Belichick is a mastermind when it comes to defense, especially when it comes to a young quarterback. He knows how to run circles around a young quarterback, make them see 12, 13 defenders on the field and make mistakes. And Sam is well aware, but you can be well aware all you want, but you still got to go out and execute. And I'm going to leave it up to EB to find a way. And I hope we don't revert back to a whole bunch of deep drops. I hope we see what we saw a lot of. You know, the thing I love now, though, is Sam now has under his belt the ability to audible to a quick screen if he feels like imminent pressure coming. At least that's now built in to where he can audible, get to a quick screen, and get the ball out of his hands quickly to avoid, you know, pressure, which should have been built in against the Giants. But that's neither here nor there. So, you know, he's well aware of the challenge that, you know, awaits him on Sunday, and he's anxious to get that opportunity. You know, somebody had brought up to Sam that Jason Kelce and we've heard this from other guys like in the preseason, Marlon Humphrey, when we went over and practiced with the Ravens, he had a glowing review of Sam and some nice things to say. And Kelce on the podcast with his brother talked about Sam Howell and how good he is. And like, yeah, they got themselves one. And so they brought that stuff up to Sam, and Sam's like, you know, I ain't really focusing on that stuff. I'm just trying to put my best foot forward and be the best player I can be for this team and try to help us win ball games. And, you know what it felt like for me today with Sam in particular? It felt like that Robert Griffin III press conference from his rookie season when Mike Shanahan said, we evaluating for next year. And Robert was like, next year? Hey, we trying to win this year and trying to win every game we got left. And then we went on a 7-game win streak and did exactly that till he got hurt. It wasn't that definitive like it was with Robert when Robert was like, nah, hey, no disrespect to coach, but we about to go win, right? Sam pretty much was like, bro, we got 9 games left, and I'm trying to win every single one of them, and we're going to take them one at a time, and I'm just trying to go 1-0 this week. That's the right mentality, and I still feel like this is a confident bunch, but you can only really build confidence by winning. You don't build confidence by losing. You know, you can start to feel like, hey, we getting into a rhythm, but you can't actually have that confidence of knowing, hey, if we get down in the game, we can come back unless you're winning games, unless you've shown the ability. And we did that against Denver in week 2. But we gotta win games in order to build that confidence. So we'll see what happens. And then you get to the locker room, and it was exactly what you expected. Charles Leno, he was a little shook up, you could tell, because you know he went against those guys in practice every day, and so they had a little bit of a bond. So he was like, you know, it's a business, and he was well aware. He's like, look, at some point, somebody's gonna take my locker and be wearing number 72. I know it's a business. I'm like, yeah, after this season, somebody's gonna take your spot more likely than not. I think he's got one more year on the deal, though. He might not be gone. But he was like, yeah, you know, I found out like everybody else found out. You know, it ain't like we are like they tell us the whole team, hey, we trade in Montez and Chase. It ain't like Chase and Montez get traded and the first thing they do is start hitting up teammates. We found out like y'all found out through social media. So yeah, the shit is crazy. Antonio Gibson was like, I ain't gonna even lie to y'all. I ain't gonna even hold y'all. I ain't reached out to neither one of them yet. We'll see Chase later in the season, and you know, I'll hit him up eventually. But you know, he said I'm gonna miss them out on the practice field. They the loudest ones. I'm gonna miss looking over and seeing them at their locker. But it's a business. We know what it is. I'm looking at him. I'm saying, yeah, you ain't gonna be here next year either. You know what I'm saying? And you know, these are dudes we like, But we keeping it a buck. You know, Leno probably ain't gonna be here next year. Logan Thomas probably ain't gonna be here next year. Antonio Gibson probably ain't gonna be here next year. When you get a new staff, that's what happens. Turnover and change ensues. But I'm not against it. I'm not against it. Kendall Fuller talked about it. You know, Kendall's really subdued. He ain't gonna really, you know, show a whole ton of emotion. Like you barely get any laughs out of Kendall. He's pretty straightforward, and he's a veteran. You could tell, you know, his two older brothers played in the league, so like he's cool, calm, and collected. None of this shit phases him at all, and so he's like, yeah, you know, it sucks. Those are our brothers. These are guys that we saw every day, you know, for the last 3-4 years. And he's like, shit, I got traded. So I know how this shit feels. I didn't get traded in season, but I got traded. I know how this goes. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, next man up. That's what this league is all about. And that's what Sam said. Guys are going to get opportunities. And Kendall said the same thing. And was, you know, and he's like, the good thing is we got a proven track record with the dudes that are going to get an opportunity. Because Casey and James Smith-Williams played in 2021. And in that 6-game stretch, we won 4 games in a row, right? So we know what those guys are capable of. So anyway, I digress. Let's get to our first look at the New England. I didn't change the artwork. Let me do that right now. I was slacking. Let's change this real quick. There we go. Now let's take our first look at the New England Patriots. And I'm going to keep this short and sweet. 2 things. 1, I'm worried about Bill Belichick and his defense. Belichick this is what he lives for. A young quarterback coming to Foxborough, eyes wide open, not really sure what he's going to get, thinking he knows. And Sam talked about how they do a great job of disguising what it is they're getting to. He's like, they don't play anything really exotic per se, but they do an excellent job. And that's Bill Belichick is a stickler for the small granular details. And one of those small details is not showing coverage until it's too late. Like a lot of times quarterbacks make pre-snap reads based off of the look, and now they know where to go with the football. But if you confuse them and they think they know what they saw, so they're going here, and then they predetermine this is where they're going, and then you shift late to something else, and they throw the ball there, and it's not what they thought. It's a pick. And that's what Belichick does better than anybody in the business. Is pre-snap, he'll give you a look. You thinking, okay, I got a single high safety. I'm about to take this shot to Terry. And then right as you snap the ball, the guy that's down in the box sprints, you know, back to the safety spot. The other guy gets over, and now it's a two-man look, right? And shit, I was going up top to Terry, and now he's double covered. Now what am I doing? And you've already predetermined, so you let the bitch go, and now you're throwing in the double coverage, you get picked off. Or you thinking, oh, I got a nice little look here. You know, I'm gonna run this deep dig. I'm gonna hit this dig over the middle of the field because they playing man, and you're not knowing that they got a robber, you know, and they got somebody running over to rob the deep dig on the other side, coming on the other side, right? They call it the rat in the hole, right? You didn't know that they had, you know, the rat defender there, and then they got the hole defender coming in and picking that bitch off, right? So yeah, I'm worried about that. And can Sam navigate the landmines that Belichick's going to set for him? Can he somehow maneuver those, stay clean relatively throughout the game, and put us in positions? Because the Patriots aren't a high-octane offense. And I just told you, and that's where I'm about to go with my last point, is they're not a high-octane offense. They're not going to score a bunch of points unless we allow them to, which we know we're fully capable of making a bad offense look good. We've done it multiple times this season. Speaking of which, they got 2 receivers out. I talked about this during the injury report. Kendrick Bourne is their best receiver. He's done for the season. Their next best receiver is Devontae Parker. He's going to be out of this game more likely than not. I can't say for certain, but I feel confident saying he's going to be out with a concussion. And so they really don't have anybody on the outsides that can hurt you. Tight ends, different story. They got plenty of those. Still got Hunter Henry. Still, they added Mike Gesicki. They got some shit. They got running backs. Ramondre Stevenson runs hard. He's physical. He's like B-Rob in the sense of how he runs. Physical, runs through arm tackles, hard to get on the ground. They still got Zeke Elliott, and he's still playing. And he's actually not playing bad, right? So they got some stuff. It shouldn't be enough if we do what we're supposed to do. But if we stay clean and Sam's able to navigate that defense, we'll win this game. I feel confident in that. If he can't, because this is one of the few games this season that we will play where the quarterback that we're playing against can't run, won't run, right? It's not often. It's just been mobile quarterback after mobile quarterback after mobile quarterback after mobile quarterback after mobile quarterback. We haven't seen a single QB this season that didn't have wheels that we had to be concerned about. Dobbs in week 1, Wilson in week 2, Allen in week 3, Hurts in week 4, Tyrod Taylor. Who was week 5? No, Justin Fields in week 5. Desmond Ridder in week 6, Tyrod Taylor in week 7, and Jalen Hurts again in week 8. So this will be the first quarterback we've seen without wheels. I'm anxious. I'm licking my chops like, all right, let's go eat. If we don't get pressure, and I think we can get pressure, I expect us to get pressure. And Mac Jones is one of those dudes. He does stupid shit under pressure, which is what almost got him benched and what's gotten him benched twice this season already. You put pressure on him, he'll throw the bitch up for grabs. No problems. Tossing that bitch in the vicinity of a receiver, not knowing where the defender is, hot potato style. There could be a Kendall Fuller pick 6 in the works this week. But you got to get to him first. You let him get comfortable and in a rhythm, he can slice and dice you. He's capable. All right. Let's get to social media maneuvers. I'm a Midnight Marauder. Y'all know what it is. Shout out to the mob. Shout out to all my Patreon supporters. Shout out to everybody. It's 500 of y'all right now in the chat right now. I really appreciate all of y'all kicking it with me. It's midnight on the East Coast. Y'all kicking it with the kid. 500 strong. Really appreciate y'all. Do me a favor. If you're out there, you support this content, hit the like button right now. It's only 100 likes. 500 of y'all, we can at least get it to 300. That's not a tough ask. Appreciate y'all. A lot. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB who writes, Big Dog Lou. What up, Tones? What up? Chilling. Nothing. Just chilling. Glad we traded Tez and Chase. I am too. I didn't want to have to do that. Ron even said that this is not what he envisioned. This is not what he wanted to do. And if the circumstances were different, and Ron talked about the quarterback position, and I talked about this on the podcast, but I'll reiterate it here. Ron talked about the lack of consistency at quarterback is what caused them to be in the position that they're in right now. And I'm like, not exactly. Not exactly, Ronald. Your inability to motivate, your inability to manage games in game, and your defensive coordinator's inability to get the most out of the talent that he was provided with. We just talked about all the first round picks you've spent on that side of the ball. Your inability to make good draft picks that elevate this roster and this team, your inability to sign free agents that have been impactful here, i.e. William Jackson III. These are all contributing factors to the demise of this team in your career as a head coach in this league. So you can blame the quarterback position, and it's not a bad answer because if you don't have a quarterback, I say this all the time. One of my favorite sayings is, you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a chance in this league. And we haven't had a quarterback. You've had 3 or more quarterbacks start for you each of the first 3 years of your tenure here. You had 4 in 2020. We started the season off with Dwayne Haskins. It went to then Kyle Allen. After that, it went to Alex Smith, and then we finished up with Taylor Heineke. In 2021, you started with Ryan Fitzpatrick. It then quickly went to Taylor Heineke. He got COVID. We had Garrett Gilbert start a game first. A lot of y'all probably forgot that. 3 starters in 2021. 2022, we started off with Carson Wentz. It then went to, of course, Taylor Heineke, and then we finished up the season with Sam Howell. So each of his first 3 seasons here, 3 or more starters started for Ron Rivera. You can't win in this league like that. And that was the point he was trying to make. But that's on you. Okay? That was on you. Right? You had the opportunity. And again, hindsight is 2020, and he did the right thing. I would have done the same thing. But he came here. He knew Dwayne wasn't the guy. He knew that. He probably did, Daniel Snyder a favor. I would have been like this. I got the number 2 overall pick. I got Justin Herbert and Tua Tagovailoa staring me in the face. I'm taking one of these bastards. But I would have done the same thing. I would have took Chase Young. And I wouldn't have hesitated, and I wouldn't have thought twice about it. So, and it's not, and again, I said this on the podcast, it's not for a lack of trying. He went after the 2020 season, he went after Matthew Stafford. Stafford didn't want to come here. Who wanted to come here? I wouldn't have wanted to come here to play with Isaiah Wright and Steven Sims Jr. No, I'm good. I'll pass. He tried to get Russell Wilson. Russell's like, nah, I know that's my hometown. I'm good. I'll cook somewhere else. And I'm glad he didn't bring his ass here. But he tried. He inquired about Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers was never coming here. So it's not for a lack of trying. He did what he could with the resources he had in terms of the quarterback position. But don't use that as the crutch to talk about why you didn't get the most out of those 2 defensive ends. You didn't get the most out of them because Jack Del Rio wasn't creative enough. It would have helped if you had a quarterback that would have helped you get out to leads, that would have forced teams to have to throw the football in the 4th quarter, and they could pin their ears back and get after the quarterback. Sure, that would have helped too. I get it. But again, they got their fair share of one-on-ones. Just win. And be nice if you schemed it up and put them in positions to get one-on-ones or to be unblocked because the offensive line in front of them is confused. Anyway, we on the same page. I think it was something that was necessary. Devon Ducare, stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB. Mob, you know what to do. Show Devon Ducare some love, tender love and care. Let them know how we do it in the MOBB. Divine Ducare, welcome to the squad. Glad to have you. Divine Ducare, thank you for being the newest member of the MOBB who writes, finally in the mob, let's go. Glad to have you, man. Glad to have you on board. It bothers me how many people think we got fleeced with Chase. They don't know, man. They don't know. They don't know. Don't try to explain nothing to them. Division family members gonna laugh at us. Y'all gave Chase away for a 3rd round pick. Y'all tripping. That's cool. We know what Chase Young is. We know what he is. And we know what kind of value he was going to produce. Divine Ducare, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, call me crazy, but we're winning 5 out of the next 7 games. That's not crazy. That's not crazy at all. Five out of the next 7 gets you at 8-7 with 2 games remaining on the season. That's right around where I think we'll be, somewhere in that neighborhood. I don't know if we'll be 8-7. I can see us being 7-8 with two remaining and needing to win out. that have a shot and not doing it. But I think we're going to be somewhere in that neighborhood. Like, I don't see this season crumbling because they traded Chase Young and Montez Sweat, like some people do. Frankie, yo, thank you for your generosity, gifting 5 memberships. Shout out to my guy, Frankie, yo, for spreading the love and bringing more members into the MOBB. Frankie, yo, shout out to my guy. Thank you for being a valued member of the squad. Video channel, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Lou, I see JS Dub and Two Hill playing much more disciplined ball. Facts. Less selfish play. We know that to be a truth, right? They did it back in 2021. Can see this D-line playing better together. And that may very well happen, you know. Sometimes when you got 4 stars on a line, everybody trying to eat. Don't nobody want to sacrifice for the next man because everybody trying to get theirs, right? That's what you struggle with sometimes. It's hard to tell Chase Young, who's trying to get to the bag, hey, I need you to eat these 2 defenders up so Jonathan Allen can loop around and get to the quarterback and be selfless and give yourself up on this play. It's hard to tell him that. I'm not saying that he doesn't do that. I'm just, you didn't see that a ton, right? It's hard to tell a dude who's trying to get to the bag, I need you to sacrifice so somebody else can eat. Casey Tuhill and James Smith-Williams going to do whatever you tell them to do. They're just trying to stay in the lead. So I expect a more disciplined play. I expect this unit up front potentially to even look sharper in the pass game. I think where we might get hurt is in the run game. That's what I'm nervous about. I never went into a game worried about anybody running on us. I now have that fear that with Chase and Montez out of the loop, because they were so good against the run, I don't think they got enough credit for how good they were as run defenders. I now have anxiety every week going into game. I'm glad we're done with the Eagles and teams like that, but I have anxiety about some of the games later on in the season. Hell, even this game against the Patriots. They're not a prolific rush offense, but they're going to try to run the ball. And if we don't do a good enough job of stopping it early, they're just going to keep running the ball. So they could put me at ease by stopping the run and making it look like how it always looks. But I think we definitely going to have to go to that Cinco package a lot more to stop the run with Two Hill and James Smith-Williams in the game. Christopher McLaughlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Chris, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, writes, hey, Lou, what's up, Chris? Hope all is well with you and the fam. Likewise. Belichick is known for scheming to stop teams' number 1 option. How do you see Bieniemy using Terry this week in the game plan, especially with the key drops last week? That doesn't impact how they feel about Terry, nor how they game plan. The drops don't change anything. They know what Terry is. They got confidence in Terry. We as fans have confidence in Terry. He's built up enough equity with us that, you know, it sucks. Those drops suck, but we don't expect that from Terry. So they're going to come into the game and their focus is going to be Sam. It's not going to be any receiver in particular. It's just going to be, hey, get to 14. And that'll take us where we want to go. And because it'd be one thing if Sam's primary focus every week was how do I get the ball to Terry 12 times, but it's not. We've complained about the ball not being, thrown to Terry or Jahan enough. And in doing that, we don't have a true number 1 that you have to focus in on in terms of ball distribution. Now, when it's all said and done, we know Terry's our number 1, but that's not what necessarily, the targets, yardage, catches, all that good stuff. That's not what that necessarily says. If Terry, and I'm assuming Terry's got the most targets on the team, but it's not by, a mile, right? So they can try and take Terry away if they want, but when it's all said and done, we got other guys we can get the football to. I think their focus, Belichick's focus, is going to be get to Sam. You cut off the head of the snake and the body dies. Like that's what he's going to try to do. Get to Sam. Confuse this young quarterback. Make him see, something that he doesn't, that he thinks he sees. Make him see something else. Christopher McLaughlin, my guy Chris. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Chris writes, hey, Lou, with Kendrick Bourne out for sure and Devontae Parker likely, would you put 8 in the box and creatively blitz this week with the Patriots offense focusing on running the ball to force Jones to throw, especially outside the numbers? No, I would. That's what you don't want to do. You don't want to be over aggressive and miss a tackle and give up a 67-yard touchdown. Like that's the last thing you want to do. That's kind of like that was the frustration with the Bears game is I thought we weren't blitzing enough in the first half, but yet we were still in vulnerable coverages, and then guys weren't doing their job too. But there was too many situations where you're in cover 2 and it's one-on-one with DJ Moore. Like, what are we doing? Why is he getting one-on-one looks? He's the only guy that can hurt us vertically. What are we doing? Like that doesn't, and then you're not blitzing on top of that, so it doesn't make sense. You're putting somebody one-on-one with DJ Moore, and you're not going to get to Justin Fields, so DJ is going to have a chance to abuse somebody down the field. That's stupid. You want to keep everything in front of you. With an offense like the Patriots, with Mac Jones making the mistakes he's been making this season, you just don't want to give up anything explosive, right? I'm going to try to stop the box with my usual 7-man front and see how that goes. And if I can't, then I go Cinco and I bring an 8th defender if need be and be a little bit more aggressive. But I'm not looking to be over aggressive and come after Mac Jones early in the game. I might get to that point where I feel like I need to start heating him up a bit. Maybe he's getting a little comfortable or they're getting a quick game going and, this, that, and the third. But what I don't want is for somebody to get beat deep and you miss a tackle or one guy doesn't do his job and next thing you know, you've given up don't give up big plays to this Patriots offense. They haven't been a big play offense all season long. Like, don't let them start being that this week. And I know I sound like a broken record, and when I usually say that, we give up big plays to teams that haven't gotten big plays. But that's the message. Like, keep everything in front of you. Make Mac Jones be perfect for 13 plays on a drive. And if he does, okay, he got us. Make him do it again and again and again because he hasn't proven that consistency over the life of this season. He's had spurts, but you're going to get him to make a mistake or two. He had a bad interception against the Dolphins where he threw it to Jalen Ramsey on Sunday. Like, what the hell are you doing? Like, force him to keep making decisions because he's going to make a wrong one at some point. Video channel. And you use the word creatively, Chris. Jack Del Rio and creatively don't go in the same sentence. We all know that. So I don't really know what you would deem creative, but Jack's not going to be creative. We know that. Video channel. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Video channel writes, this has to be a Forbes get right game. No receiver threats like the previous matchups. He needs some good tape for the next staff. I already had said to you guys, me personally, I wouldn't have been putting him out there in the Eagles game like that. I would have waited until this stretch right here of games coming up. And the Seahawks game, I might have left him off the field because I don't want DK Metcalf being able to pluck his little ass 7 yards away at the point of attack. But this Patriots game, the Giants game after the Seahawks game, and even the Cowboys game, I'd have thrown his ass out there against Dallas, even though he could probably get cooked by Brandon Cooks or CeeDee Lamb. But I would have taken my chances with those type teams. I don't want him seeing any big physical receivers like DK Metcalf. I don't. Like A.J. Brown. That's his kryptonite right now. He's too damn small. A.J. Brown literally took him and with just a flick of the wrist, pushed his little ass, grabbed him, threw his little ass out the way, but he did it in such a smooth way that the officials ain't even bother calling shit. His ass ends up on the ground, right? AJ catches the shit, gets in the end zone, and the first thing he does is turn to the officials and go like this. What? Y'all gonna let him do that to me? Get your weight up. Well, you don't have none of those dudes in this game. So his ass will be playing 35 snaps, 40 snaps in this game, right? Whatever you got to do to build his confidence, this is the game he should be able to build his confidence back up in. I totally agree with you. Mr. Pink, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Mr. Pink writes, sup, LouieTeE. What's going on, Mr. Pink? Great trades, still outside. That's the most important part. We outside with it. We outside with it. Video channel. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Video channel writes, Ron talking about we. Oh, you speak French now? I'm looking at him like Uncle Phil talking to Will. How would you summarize Ron's time here? I would summarize it as disappointing, but he was what we needed when we needed it. And I've always said I will ever be in debt to Ron for showing up at a time where we were our most vulnerable. Nobody wanted this job. Nobody wanted this job. Nobody wanted to coach for Daniel Snyder. Nobody wanted Dwayne Haskins as their quarterback. The number 2 overall pick might have been enticing to somebody, but you weren't getting Joe Burrow. Tua was coming off of hip surgery. Justin Herbert was an enigma. Like, it's funny, everybody now wants to have hindsight. That's not how you felt back in 2020. Some of you did, and some of you are quick to point out, I did feel that way in 2020, and I did want Tua, or I did want Herbert. And if you did, good for you. Good for you. You had the foresight. I didn't. I didn't want no parts of Tua. He was always banged up at Alabama, and he was coming off of hip surgery. I'm good. I'm going to pass. And I wanted no parts of Justin Herbert. He struck me as Marcus Mariota 2.0. So I was good. This wasn't an appealing job. I was shocked that he even took it. But I would characterize his time here as disappointing because he did the things he wanted to do here. He built this into a team that could win. We could have been a playoff team each of the last 2 years. We should have been in the playoffs last year. There was no reason not to make the playoffs. You got to be able to beat the Giants one of those 2 games. Like that's insane that we couldn't beat the Giants once last year. You got to beat Cleveland at home. You can't lose to the Cleveland Browns at home. No excuse for us to not make the playoffs. You can't lose to that game to the Titans. You can't do it. But I always feel like that kind of stuff balances out because we shouldn't have beat the Bears. We should have lost that game to the Bears. They outplayed us in that game. And if Darnell Mooney just catches that ball instead of double catching it and gives Juice a chance to, keep him out of the end zone, we lose that game. So that probably evens out with the Titans game. And the Colts game, you lose the Vikings game, you say we should have won that. You should have lost the Colts game. So all that shit just evens out. The only games that I look at last year and say there's no way we should have lost. The 2 Giants games, we outplayed the Giants in the second game, and we self-destructed in the first game. The second game, we outplayed them, but we made mistakes, and they were the more aggressive and hungrier team. That's on Ron. Ron came not to lose. Brian Daboll came to win. That was the difference. But coaching staff still slow to adjust. Stupid shit. And then Ron, going down with a sinking ship known as Carson Wentz. That ship, you could see, hit an iceberg in the first quarter. His first passing attempt got picked off. The man had already thrown 2 picks, and you would not bench him. You got what you deserved. But I'd say disappointing because he built this thing into a team that could win. We should have won last year and made it to the playoffs. And I think we should be 5-3, no worse than 5-3. We should be 6-2 right now. And it's because of him and his staff that we're not. And, yep, the players get some of the blame too. especially the Chicago game in particular. I think the players really let the coaching staff down in that game. A lot of missed and blown assignments. But again, Jack, you blitz Justin Fields in the second half. He did next to nothing. You let him sit back there all day in the first half, and he carved us up. That's on you. Giants game, you go in with this faulty offensive game plan. You know you're going to get the blitz. You come out, you're dropping Sam back. The line's getting devoured, and you don't adjust until the second half. You come out with the same game plan you had against Philadelphia, against the Giants, you win that game. Again, it's on you and your staff. So for me, it's disappointing. That's how I would term his time here. It's because we should have gotten more out of it. We should have gotten more out of it. Joe Rockhead, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, yes, Ron believes in Sam, but tired of developing Sam being the slogan he hides behind. It's his first answer to totally unrelated questions. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Anytime he wants to avoid answering something, or he really doesn't have an answer for it, he just talks about developing a young quarterback. And you're like, so they asked you about the defensive line, and you're telling me about developing Sam? They talk about the lack of running attempts for Brian Robinson when he's averaging 7 yards a carry, or in the last game, 6 yards a pop. And you talk about developing Sam? They ask you about the defensive back struggles and blown coverages by Danny Johnson and Percy Butler, and you tell me you're developing a quarterback. Okay, I hear you. I hear you. I'm with you 110%. Divine do care. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Divine do care. Writes, wait, double up. Thank you for doubling up. Writes, finally, I don't have to hear about our 4 first-round pick D-line anymore every game. I know for some of you it was frustrating. It bothered me only in this sense. They weren't playing like it. And had they been playing like that, then you want to hear about the vaunted 4 first-rounders you've spent. And we've been hearing about this for years. Remember, Kerrigan was a first-rounder too. So they would even go as far, in 2020 in particular, when Kerrigan was still here, they would even go as far as to say they've got 5 along that defensive line. So it used to be even worse. Now we don't have to hear it. You're right. Legendary One. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Legendary One writes, would take Max Crosby type production over both Tez and Young. Sorry, not sorry. And he was like a day 3 pick. Disappointed in fans who overvalue. Sad. Yeah, Max Crosby is better than both of those guys. I don't think any of us are denying that. He's already got a double-digit season under his belt. You can't watch a Max Crosby game and think to yourself, that looks different. There's no way you can watch a game and think to yourself, oh, yeah, our guys look like that. Even when he's not making a play, he's going 110 miles an hour, and his 110 looks 110. They call him Mad Max for a reason, because he plays with this ridiculous motor and an edge and balls to the wall, and he's trying everything to get to the quarterback. Spins twice, same play. He's got moves, right? He's trying all of them. He's emptying the tank. You can't do anything but respect that. Can't do anything but respect that. Rocky D, been a member for 11 months. Who writes, Ron blaming Sam was low-hanging fruit. And that's not what he was doing. I think a lot of y'all misconstrued that. He was blaming the quarterback position in previous years. Not Sam. Not Sam. He's been hiding behind Sam this year in his quote-unquote development, but he wasn't blaming the failures of the organization and, his stint and having to trade those 2 guys on Sam. He was blaming it on the inability of them to figure out the quarterback position. I thought he made that clear, but maybe it was a little convoluted. DJ23, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. DJ23 writes, I hope EB instills in Sam that you have to go through possession, since they do disguise coverage. Your first read might not be there. Casey 5 sacks. I think you mean progressions. He's got to go through his progressions. There and you, what I hope he understands is you can't predetermine. Going through progressions is fine and dandy, and you need to do that, but you can't predetermine. Like most games, okay, this is the look. I know we're getting cover 2, or we're getting cover 3, or we're getting cover 4. I know this is where the ball's supposed to go. Based off of the pre-snap reads that you've made, I'm working the front side. I know where I'm going with the ball. I'm going to Jahan. As soon as he comes off the ball, Jahan's going to run 5 yards, stop. He should be wide open. I'm throwing it to him. You got to make sure what you're seeing is what you're actually seeing, which means the offensive line is going to have to do a great job of sustaining blocks, because he may not be able to get rid of it as fast, because he may have to double check just to make sure. Am I seeing what I'm truly seeing? Is this what I thought it was? And hopefully he's able to do that quickly in this game. It's going to be a chess match. Hopefully we're not playing checkers this week, because we know Belichick is always playing chess. Casey with 5 sacks. Jamal Hamlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, hey, Lou. What's up, Jamal? I hope everything is good. Likewise, everything is good. Appreciate you for asking. My concern going into this game is seeing mayonnaise in coverage, NHO. Well, you're going to see him in coverage. Whether you like it or you don't like it, he'll be on the field because there's no Cody Barton. So you already know what you're getting. So I don't even complain about getting a glob of mayo. I know I'm getting a glob of mayo. I just hope, and the Patriots, if they're smart, they will come out and run personnel but throw the football, because you force then David Mayo to do the thing that we don't want him to be in the game to do, and that's play pass coverage. But what last week essentially said to me is they don't give a damn. They don't care if it's a run look or if it's a pass look. They're going to leave him out there. He played, 80-something% of the snaps last week, which means they took – and I get it. I don't get it, because the Eagles didn't even really try to run the ball last week. They couldn't run the ball. So they threw it a ton. And we didn't give a shit. Mayo was just out there. So Sovereign Legacy, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Sovereign Legacy, thank you for your generosity. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, not sure if anyone brought it up, but people mad at the Chase trade forgot the 49ers gave up so much for Trey Lance and ended up with like a 5th or whatever. Smart people make decisions sooner rather than later and keep it moving. Love the good work, Lou. That's a great point, Sovereign Legacy. And that's what I was alluding to with the Chase Young stands out there. They're like, we should have gotten more for Chase. The number 2 overall pick shouldn't fetch you a 3rd round compensatory pick. And smart teams, and I'm not saying that we're smart, but I'm telling you, this is a smart decision. It's one of the few we've made in recent, years, decades, even. The smart teams know when to cut their losses. You got to know when to hold them and when to fold them, right? And this, to me, wasn't rocket science here. You got a team offering you something that you may not be able to get, and you got to cut your losses and admit we made a mistake. And that's okay. And the smart teams admit that sooner rather than later, like you said, because when you're able to admit, hey, I made a mistake, the sooner you admit that, the sooner you can move on from said mistake. I always talk about the first step on the road to recovery is admitting that there's a problem. Well, you can't get to that next step in your road to recovery if you're not willing to admit that there's a problem in the first place. You got to admit, hey, we spent the number 2 overall pick on Chase Young, but he's not giving us number 2 overall production. So now we got to get out of the Chase Young business. And when you look around at the landscape at what people are offering you to get out of the Chase Young business, you're like, well, this ain't shit. But you waiting even longer isn't going to produce more for you, which is why I don't get why people are so up in arms. Us waiting, us holding on to him and not trading him isn't going to get you something more after the season's over. You're either going to have to franchise him, sign him to a long-term deal, which we weren't trying to do either one, which is why they didn't pick up the 5th-year option in the first place. You got to sign and trade him. That's probably not going to work. How often do you see sign and trades in the NFL? Not very often. Because the guy that you're signing has to agree to help you. Like Derek Carr, for instance. The Raiders, he could have signed and traded. He could have helped the Raiders out. He's like, I'm not helping y'all with shit. Y'all bench me the final 2 games of the season. Y'all can kiss my ass. Cut me. Y'all don't get to choose where I go. And you damn sure ain't getting no pick on the back end of this shit. You might get a compensatory pick. I ain't helping you with that. Chase ain't helping us out. So you're not getting nothing in no sign and trade. He'd have to agree to that. And why would he? At the end of the day, this was the best you were going to get. Speak now or forever hold your peace. You might have got a compensatory pick, but it wasn't going to be in 2024. We're trying to put together as much ammunition as possible for the next GM so that if he wants to come in here and trade up for a quarterback, he can. I wouldn't advise you doing that, but we still got 9 games left. Who knows what happens with Sam? You just want to be in a position that if that's what you need to do, you can. If there's a guy you like, Brock Bowers is a name y'all keep throwing out there at the tight end position, and you feel like you're within striking distance and you want to go get him, you can. You got the ammunition to do it. Go get him. You want to tackle, you got to tackle pegged. This is the guy. This is the guy that we know can be a rock for us for the next 12 years. Go get him there. You got the ammunition to do that. So I'm with you, Sovereign Legacy. Some people don't see it that way, and that's fine. We can agree to disagree, but me and you on the same page. We on the same page. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Commanders Nightly News. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys tomorrow, where we will go behind enemy lines with the New England Patriots. We'll hear from the coordinators, see what Jack Del Rio has to say about losing his 2 defensive ends. See what EB has to say this week. Pastor EB, as I forgot who calls him Pastor EB. Somebody that DMs me every week. I think it's my guy Brandon. Calls him Pastor EB. And we'll see. We'll see what happens. But anyway, I digress. You guys get out of here. Have a good one. And I will see you guys next time. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. Y'all take care. God bless. And good night.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap. Hand to Riggins. Good hold. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35. The 30.